All right. Well, welcome everyone. Welcome to the presentation on dual enrollment. My name is Robert Melendez. I am a counselor here at Irvine Valley College, and I'm very glad to at least know you're all here, even though I can't see you. And I'd like to let my co-presenter here introduce himself too.
Great. Thanks, Robert. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Vin Nguyen, and I am the interim director of dual enrollment at Irvine Valley College. Very happy to be here to co-present with Robert regarding a program that you all could utilize as students from Tustin Unified. Before we go into the material, I guess I was just sharing with Robert, maybe we could do a fun fact just so you know a little bit about us. One fun fact is that I grew up in the Garden Grove, Westminster area nearby, and my very first college class was actually when I was becoming a senior in high school. I was short one class in terms of meeting my A to G requirements for graduation. It was an art class, and I was not an artistic person, never was able to prioritize such a class. By the time senior year came around, I didn't want to take an extra class during the school year to make my school day longer. So in working with a high school counselor, they suggested I take a cinema appreciation class at a nearby community college, was able to take that to earn some credit that counted for both college and high school. Robert, you want to share something about yourself before we go?
Yeah, well, I'll share a little fun fact with dual enrollment too. So my very first college class was also a dual enrollment class. I was actually a junior. I grew up in the city of Orange, went to El Medina High School. I was a Vanguard. And I actually took a class with Santa Ana College. And funny enough, it was a counseling course, which I now am a community college counselor. So I guess it kind of maybe led me to where I am today. But it was kind of my first introduction to obviously what college was, but even what that kind of experience was in the classroom. And it was an on-campus class in the evening. I remember it was a late class because I remember getting dropped off in the beginning by my mom, but then I started driving myself, so that was good. Can't be getting dropped off by mom to a college. But yeah, it was a good experience. Actually learned a lot as far as how college works, how to transfer, and all that kind of stuff. And it really helped me going in senior year to have a better idea on what I wanted to do.
Great. Well, that's something I just learned about Robert. So thanks, Robert. All right, so we can get into the meat of the presentation. All right. I'm not sure if you all are aware of this, but every single year, many of your peers at Tustin Unified actually earn college degrees at Irvine Valley College. They walk away with associate's degrees. They complete their general education for college so that when they graduate and they start college, they're actually done with all their general ed requirements. A good amount of students actually earn the certificates that we offer here at the college. And at the very least, many students actually walk away with college units that's already earned that will count towards their bachelor's degree, even if they go off to a University of California or Irvine Valley or CSUs or community colleges. If you see in this picture here, this is, I think, probably a early college program that we have here, and you see it's 2014. So we have a rich history of students from your district taking classes at Irvine Valley College. And we're going to tell you how you could do that in our various flavors at the college. So first of all, dual enrollment, this program that Robert and I are talking about, it's effectively high school students being able to take college classes while you're still in high school. And you might wonder, why would high school students want to do this? And in my opinion, I think there's two groups of students that might be sitting in the audience today. One are students that have already decided, yes, I want to go to college. I want to get a head start. And with that, by being a part of this dual enrollment program, you could earn credit towards high school graduation, earn credit towards college degrees. You could actually reduce a lot of the costs that you might be responsible for down the line. So by taking these classes early on, depending on the program, you would have your fees and tuition waived. Robert's going to get into some details later. And by taking a lot of the classes early on, you might reduce your student debt if you have to take out student loans to pay for college, or you might be able to reduce your parents' debt if they're taking out some of the loans. That's the first group. The second group of students that might be sitting in the audience today could be that, there could be some of you thinking, is college even for me? Right? So not everybody knows if college is for them. And this program that we have at the college allows you, while you're still in high school, to get a flavor of what college is like, so that hopefully you can make an informed decision that, yes, you can go to college, you can pass these classes. So in general, there are two types of dual enrollment, what we call general dual enrollment, or CCAP. General dual enrollment is just, in a nutshell, you applying to our college and you sign up for courses that are offered at the college. So a lot of times, because you're still in high school, you have, your school day that starts at 8 in the morning going into 3 p.m. and then you might be in sports after school. So you might take some of our classes in the evening or at night, or in the weekends, or even online. So those classes are open to the entire community, and you would apply to our college and try to register in some of those classes. Now, because you are still in high school, you don't have the priority for you to be able to get some of those classes. You're not on the high priority list because you're not a full-time college student. So because of that, sometimes it might be harder to register for a class that you are interested in. And so that leads us to the second type of dual enrollment that we offer here at the college, and that's through an agreement with your local high school and the district. And the cool thing about this is that our college would be able to offer college courses at your high school inside the bell schedule. So some of the classes are intertwined in your class period. It could be at your period 1, period 2, period 3, period 4, so that it is less disruptive for you. You don't have to try to drive to the college campus in the middle of the day. So yeah, so the intent of that is to make it easier for you to take the college classes. However, the selection is, of course, a little bit more limited because we can't offer all of our classes at your high school. So there's only a few hand-selected few that's offered there. The cool thing about this CCAP program is that, a lot of the fees are waived. Books will be covered by your high schools. And let's see, am I missing anything, Robert, in terms of the CCAP program?
No, I think the only thing I always like to kind of say is that with the CCAP courses, especially for Test and Unified, those classes do get put on that high school transcript and the college transcript, and that's really different than the general dual enrollment, because the general dual enrollment you have to request the high school credit for high school graduation purposes. So that's one big difference because it automatically happens with the CCAP.
Thanks, Robert. Now, just want to give you a flavor of some of the classes or different programs that we're offering at the various high schools in your district. First is this early college pathway or early college program that's offered specifically at Beckman High School. You would have to be a part of the program starting in 9th grade. And the intent of the program is for students to take classes during your bell schedule where you are taking both high school and college courses. You'll be taking a few per year, and the intent is you are going to finish your general education requirement, something called the IGETC specifically, which counts for both the CSUs and the UCs for you to earn. So by the time that you're a senior, you could earn all the requirements that's required for your general ed, and many students actually walk away with an associate's degree as well by taking some additional major courses. So that's kind of like a very niche program that we have at Beckman High School. At some of the other at some of the schools, we offer administration of justice at Tustin High, human development. So if you're interested in working with children, infant, K to 12, K to 6, want to be a teacher down the line, we have classes that will introduce you to some of those topics. A lot of students are very interested in entrepreneurship or business, so we offer entrepreneurship classes at Beckman, Foothill, Hillview, and Legacy Magnet. Foothill and Tustin, we offer sign languages as well. We know that one of the cool thing with dual enrollment is that, a lot of times high school classes offer classes that you can take, but they don't offer all the classes. So for example, sign language is not something that all high schools offer. So we offer this for Foothill and Tustin. Same thing with kinesiology. A lot of folks are considering becoming a physical therapist. They want to be more involved in sports. So we offer classes around kinesiology for those that are interested in that particular pathway. We have dance. We have counseling courses that help you prepare to be a more equipped college student, time management, career exploration, etc. We have communication courses. So we all know, or the saying is that a lot of people, their number one fear is actually to communicate in public. So to give a speech, etc. So we have courses that will prepare you to do public speaking as well. And then we have a legal pathway at Beckman. So this is for those that want to get into law. So we have pathways to earn a paralegal certificate and degrees as well. I'm going to pause there. Robert, do you have anything to add in terms of our dual enrollment options?
Yeah, and we'll probably kind of talk about this a bit more. And this goes back to what you were speaking on in the last slide here too, Vin, to where this is just like a quick snapshot of options for students. And this try, like you've already said, to really get the process as easy and make it as easy as possible for students to get and take classes. So some of you might see classes on here and get excited about content that potentially is in these courses. Others of you might be looking at this list and feel like, oh, well, that's a little disappointing. Like, I wish there was a bio course. I wish there was a calculus course, any number of different classes you're really thinking about, maybe computer science, right? And the great news is, just as Ben was talking about with general dual enrollment, the whole schedule is kind of open to students in general dual enrollment. The only thing is that there's a couple extra hurdles we have to go over to try to get into those classes. Number one, we need approval by the high school. The class needs to be open when we get to the point of trying to enroll. And unfortunately, high school students are going to have the lower priority for those classes. Whereas with these classes, they get the only priority for the classes. They're really only competing with themselves. So again, it's kind of a mixed bag of pros and cons of which way you attempt this or try to get courses done. But I recap and the ones listed here are a great way to at least get your feet wet with the college course, and especially it being within the Bell schedule at your high school, and then move on from there to see if you want to explore other courses. All right, Vin, I'm going to take it from here. And I think I skipped way too ahead. All right, here we go. Was there anything else you wanted to add, Vin, on that other slide?
No,
No.
I think you got everything. I'm gonna try. There's some questions in the Q&A. I'm gonna try to answer some of them in there so it's documented. I might save a few for a live answer, which I will just pitch your way when it's appropriate.
Sounds good. Yeah. And then we're going to try to leave about 15 minutes, at least at the end, to go through some of these questions, but also to obviously answer some more as we go through. So we've talked a lot about options for dual enrollments, the two different types of dual enrollments in which really community college Irvine Valley College in particular has. One of the things you might be asking, and I know as a parent, I would be asking for the first time considering having my student or my child go ahead and take a class is, well, is my for this? Is this a good option for them? And although, lots of different things come into play with that, these are kind of some of the desirable traits that we would say that we would be looking and expecting a high school student to be able to have some success in the college courses. And I'm going to say that a couple of times and kind of reiterate that these are college courses. We're not teaching a college course at a high school level. We are teaching a college course for high school students, but it is the college course and the college content. And that's really important to know. So when we think of that, you're going to need to make sure that you have some pretty solid time management and study skills. Obviously, the professors are going to be there to support and help students, but at the same time, this is a college course where you're not meeting daily or consistently at times, like some of the other high school courses will. So that communication, that and kind of conversation that may happen with some high school courses isn't going to be there when it comes to these college courses, especially if your student decides to take one of the online courses. So we need to make sure that that student has and is willing to kind of really take the lead for their own education and really take the time, block the get the homework done, to study, get assignments done, and even be ready for the tests and everything like that. The other thing is they're going to need to be self-advocates. I know as parents, you all are obviously here, the parents in the room and the students that are here, awesome too. But the parents, you're in this room because you want to know more and you're an active participant in your child's kind of education. And that's great. And we will continue. And I wouldn't say that anyone at IVC doesn't want that to be the case. At the same time, when you start talking about a student taking a college course, the student is going to need to be their own self-advocate in the classroom and even outside of the classroom, working with the instructor, working to try to get documents, trying to get information, or even trying to take part in programs or even services that the college may have. So that's really important. And this is a great way for them to start learning how to do that a bit more, obviously with your encouragement. And then student maturity is important. So obviously not all content in every class is going to be controversial or of, a nature which is specifically for adults, but there is going to be those time and topics in which do that. In college, one of the things we always pride ourselves on is that we challenge and we make students critically things. So we may kind of look at different items in which a student brings in thoughts, processes, whatever the case may be. And depending on the class, we might share information, look at information, and have that student really kind of dissect their points and really be able to critically think why it is they feel that way and why and how they can kind of express themselves to the best, especially in society. So those are all things that we want to make sure the student's ready to do and prepared to kind of take in that information too. And then the last thing is the self-motivation. There's going to be no one over the student telling them, hey, make sure you log on to the information system, which we use, which is called Canvas, very similar to Aries, and try to make sure you get everything going on there. The student's going to really need to be able to do that themselves and really be able to know that they can and need to do that and stay up to date with all the information. And more importantly, the assignments there too. All right. The other things that we want to consider when we're talking about taking a college class, and this was actually one of the questions in which was put, and I already answered in the Q&A, is that these college classes go on a college transcript. So we say this is kind of a mark or a tattoo that they're putting on themselves early on. And that's awesome, especially when we do well in the courses. You take a couple of courses, you get a couple of A's in classes, you're bringing those A's into your university credit when you go to that university. At the same time, if you struggle, you don't finish the class, you decide not to do any of the assignments and you fail the course, that is also a negative mark that's going to be on your transcript too. And when you go to the universities, whether you're applying at a high school or you go to a college and then apply for transfer or even go to grad school later, they're going to want any and all courses that you've taken through college. And this would be one of them. And even though you may have taken it through high school or when you were a freshman in high school, it's still going to count and be seen the same way. There's no asterisk on our transcript or anything like that that says, yeah, I took this class, but I was only a sophomore in high school, so it doesn't really count. No, it does really count. And it counts the same way if you're 15 years old taking the class or you're 51 years old taking the class. So it's really important that we kind of think about it from that standpoint. Again, we do expect the student to understand that it's going to be the same level of rigor. I work with a lot of students that in and ask like, okay, but because it's at Tustin, because it's at Beckman, because it's at Foothill High School, like the course is going to be a little bit easier, right? And the answer to that is no. And that is for a reason. If we teach a course as we need to make sure that course is the same no matter where or how we teach it. So if it's taught on the IVC campus, if it's taught on Beckman's campus, if it's taught online, if it's taught even at our offsite center, ATEP, right next to the Legacy Magnet, we need to know and we need to assure our kind of transfer partners that that class is the same and that it's the same not only based on the location, but also no matter who is in that room, whether it's high schoolers or college age students. So it's really important. And that's what assures that we get and are able to have those courses count for articulation. And articulation is just that counting for the university credit by our university partners. And also that we're able to keep our accreditation even and be able to offer degrees and courses for college credit. We're going to talk about this next one in a little bit more detail in a minute, but that's FERPA. So is just the federal act that limits access to student records for students that are in college. So that's a little bit more information that we're going to talk about there, but that is kind of a big deal, especially because it is very different than how high school works too. And then the fourth and last thing on there is that all these courses are taught by IVC college professors. Now, what you might have is an instructor that is from the high school that is teaching the class. And that happens, every once in a while. They, in that case, are not actually teaching as the high school professor, they're actually teaching as the college professor. So in some way they got employed or are working through IVC. So it's important to know that because I think a lot of times students and even parents think that these are classes that are taught by high school instructors and giving college credit. That is not the case. These are college courses taught by college professors. The next thing here, whoa. Okay, is IEPs and 504s. So a lot of students may have accommodations that they're looking for. We at IVC want to support those students and want to make sure those students get all the support they need to be successful in classes. One thing that is very different is that you are going to have to get this support separate and distinct from anything you're doing with high school. So I put kind of the things that will resonate with high school parents here of IEPs and 504 plans, because that's what you probably understand and recognize now. When you get to college or when you actually start taking some dual enrollment classes, if you're looking at getting some of these potential, this is where you're going to need to actually work with our program called DSPS. That is our Disabled Support and Services program at IVC. And with them, you will come in, you will get an assessment done to look and see what are the different accommodations that may need to be needed by the student in order for them to have success in the course. Those accommodations are basically written up, and then the student brings that and takes it, and this is them being that self-advocate again, takes it to the instructor for the instructor to use and utilize through the class. The SPS is available to help the student as they go through if there's some questions that come up, especially by the. But in addition to that, anything as far as needing note takers, needing any kind of technology to help with the class with taking notes or understanding the content will all be done and given by DSPS. So even though that course is going to be at the high school campus, any support that's needed for accommodations really will to be done and taken care of by DSPS. And I always encourage students to do that very early on too, because that's going to be important for you to get those done. All right, next, as I talked about, is FERPA. So FERPA is the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act. So one thing to understand, no matter what age the student is, as soon as the student starts taking college courses, they are an adult as it relates to their college classes and the information for college. So for example, if you wanted to speak with myself, with a professor, even go to the admissions office to be able to get information about how you're doing, information about what college classes they're taking, or even to get a transcript. Unfortunately, you're not going to be able to get that information. That information needs to be given to and needs to be requested by the student themselves. So that's, again, that's really important and very different than what happens at high school. So it's important for us to know this going in, because this is where we want to really be working with our students to make sure that they have the ability and to know that these are going to be things that they're going to need to be advocates for themselves to do. So again, information needs to go directly to the student. That doesn't mean you as a parent aren't going to be still involved. I'm sure you're going to be there kind of helping, expressing your kind of thoughts as the student may be talking to the professor, talking to myself as the counselor, talking to the director of N, whatever the case may be, or even writing that email. But any communication does need to go through the student. If that is including you, and the student approves that, that's perfectly fine. But at least initially, the information needs to go through the student. So it's important to know, because as we kind of look at all these other items, what we limit and what we can do with the parent non-student is going to be limited. So this is, of course, some of the other stuff that we had talked about already, that there are going to be frank discussions on sensitive topics in classes. There may potentially be graphic nature in which the discussions happen or shown, and all sorts of other information here as far as what can or cannot go on as far as the campus is concerned. All right. So what we say is, again, if there is any communication that needs to happen, work with your student to kind of get that information and help them through that process. And the good thing is, with most of the classes that are CCAP, the high school counselors can be advocates for your student also. I work pretty closely with a lot of the high school counselors as students run into any questions, problems, or anything like that through the process, so they can kind of reach out and get some support if needed. And then as I'm working student, I often meet with the parent and the student to be able to help them get into classes and even navigate through the process also. All right, so that is going to bring us kind of to the end of the slides here. I saw that there was a decent number of questions that kept coming through, so I wanted to kind of jump through these so that way we can start asking these questions, especially because I see a couple that are relating to AP. And I know that AP is going to be something kind of big that we're going to want to talk about here. So let me go and stop my share here. All right.
So Robert, I answered most of those questions, but I left one that I think is worth addressing here, like what you just said, the AP one. So
okay, perfect. Okay, so I'm just going to read it out here. So a sophomore in Irvine High School, and she takes and will be taking many AP classes. What's the difference between AP class and dual enrollment at IVC? Does AP class make a student stand out? Thanks. Okay, so I like to say it this way. These are obviously two separate and very distinct things, AP and dual enrollment. AP has been around for years, just like college, obviously. And what AP is, and I always clarify in this way, is a high school class in which you're taking a test at the end of that high school class for consideration of college credit. So what I mean by that is, if a student takes that test or even doesn't take that test, that really dictates if they get any type of college credit. So the tests are out of a score of 5. So if a student usually gets a 2 or below, I don't know if a college actually gives any credit for that, but a 3 or better potentially will give credit for students for APs. So where APs really kind of have an advantage is that they happen through the high school day and are a part of the courses there at the high school. So that's really kind of to the student's advantage because they don't have to leave, they don't have to try to sign up with IVC or another community college. The only limitation I would say is that the variability of how that course is going to work. And I know AP, we've been kind of taught, and I think we kind of understand it as, that's the way to really stand out. And it's a great way to stand out. But as I answered a question previously, there's lots of ways to stand out, right? And one of the other ways to stand out is to take an actual college course. So with a college course, it's not like you're taking a high school course again and trying to take a test to get credit for it. You're in the college course. So the whole time you're in the college course, you complete that course and you get a C or better, you get college credit. That college credit is on a college transcript, and that college transcript is going to be able to be used and sent to universities. So I'm not going to sit here and tell you that APs are better or worse than dual enrollment. I'm going to say that it is a part of what is kind of the landscape of opportunities for students to really be able to stand out while they're in high school. And if you were personally asking me, I would say I think it makes sense to do APs. I also think it makes sense to do dual enrollment. And I think probably the students that are maximizing their kind of ability to get ahead as much as possible is probably going to do a combination of the two. Looking at APs to do certain classes that make sense for them with the high school and trying to get the college credit, and others in which they're going to do through CCAP, which we've been talking about, or with general dual enrollment. One last thing I will say on this, and then I'll get off of my soapbox on the AP question at least, is that you don't ever want to take an AP, take an exam, and then take a course of college in that same area. So that just will start becoming issues because most universities are not going to give you double credit. Normally, they're going to give you the college credit. So if you take the college class, that's usually going to supersede kind of the AP that the student did. So I usually always tell students, because I'll get students that say, hey, I just took AP Bio. I got a 4 in that. I want to do like an intro to bio. Intro to bio is probably not the best way to go for a community college course. We want to do a more advanced course. And that's what really kind of the advantage of dual enrollment, because you want to think of APs as usually always being like the entry level of anything, like intro to psychology, intro to political science, American government, whatever it is. And at the college and even university with dual enrollment, you're able to more advanced section of that. So hopefully that kind of helps you understand APs a bit more, but feel free to throw more questions into there too. All right, then I'm going to just answer the ones here and just kind of go through them. So the next question here told me, okay, they told me to get on this dual enrollment to get more details. So yeah,
I can answer that a little bit. I think because I answered a few questions before. I think one person, I don't know if it's a student or parent, I think essentially is a senior this year and would like to be a part of the Promise program, but right now I think the system deems them as not a first-time college student, so they're not eligible. So Tina, my response is I would encourage you to contact the program director for the Promise program. They should be able to help you navigate how to get that rectified. So
yeah. And just to reiterate there, dual enrollment does not hurt you from the standpoint of being able to take advantage of Promise. So basically, as long as you're taking those college courses prior to graduation, then there is no issue there. And just like Vince said, if there is something going on, then let's get in contact with and figure that out, because there's probably just some misunderstanding there.
I can take the next question from Richie.
Okay.
Daughter at Irvine High, can she participate in CCAP if she doesn't go to Beckman or Tustin? So in general, if you're a student at Irvine High, Irvine Unified is a little unique in that their CCAP offerings is not as rich. So they do allow students within the district to take courses, the CCAP courses across the high school, because a lot of them are offered online. So it's generally open to everybody in the district, but it really depends on the individual courses. So I would encourage you to get in touch with a counselor or the person at your high school that supports dual enrollment, and they should be able to help you figure out which courses the students are eligible for. But I think in general, Irvine Unified does allow students to go within the district across schools.
And usually with Irvine High School, the best way to, or any of the Irvine Unified schools, I should say, the best way to kind of get information on the options is to talk to your high school counselor. The high school counselors will have that information, and they will kind of walk you through the process of how to go ahead and take part in any of those CCAP offerings that IUSD is having. And then the other thing I was going to say is, and I know there's more questions popping in here, we'll get back to that in a second, but what I wanted to bring up here is just the IVC class schedule. So one thing you can always do is come to the IVC class schedule, and this is our class schedule for spring 2024. So these are the classes that are going to start January 16th. I'm more than positive is the start of our spring semester. So these are classes in which you could do as general dual enrollment outside of CCAP. And as a student, you would be looking here and trying to find some of the different classes that you're thinking of. So one of the ones I brought up and come up often is computer science, because there might be some limited programming options at the high school. So you click on here and you can see all the different classes, the title, and probably most importantly, what is involved or a part of that course here. And then, of course, you have days, times, and everything like that. So I'm going to kind of slowly scroll so you can kind of see some of the different options that we have, and the fact that we have some classes full, but even some classes still open. But we offer everything from Python, data analysis, C programming, C++, Java, just to name a few. So again, this is the kind of way that's best for you to explore and look at all the different options as it relates to general dual enrollment and classes in which students can take. Now, it is up to the high school to go ahead and basically approve you as a student to take any of these courses. So although you may see a class here that you really want to take, you would need to work with your high school to make sure that you are able to take those classes, because those classes need to be approved by them for us to allow you to enroll in the course. And you have your hand up. I'm going to allow you to talk here. Go for it.
She didn't mean to.
Oh, gotcha.
She's sitting next to me. All is good. Thank you, Robert.
No problem. I'm going to disable that then. So that goes away. All right. So there was a couple questions on GPA. So let me answer that. And then I see this other question here on the top anyways, that's talking about weighted GPA. So one thing to understand is in college, there is no weighted GPA. It's on a straight 4.0. But what we're talking about here is high school students taking college. So we need to kind of distinguish between the two types of GPAs a student's going to get. The IVC GPA or the IVC transcript is always going to be strictly based on a 4.0. Again, no weighting of GPA at all there. Now, when you talk about how that student is going to be seen from a GPA standpoint on a UC or a Cal State application, that is where the dual enrollment class will work the same way for weighting of your GPA as AP and honors. So this in itself can kind of take a whole hour presentation, to be honest with you. But when you're talking about weighting GPA for the UCs and the Cal States, you're really talking about the honors, the AP, and the college courses counting as an extra point towards that weighted GPA. The UCs and the Cal States limit that to 8 courses in total. So 8 courses of combination of the AP honors and college courses is really what you're looking at. And that would be really from the 10th and 11th grade. So those courses, again, will count for as community college courses towards that weighted GPA the same way and with the same limitations the AP and the honors do. That said, applying, you get that weighted GPA for consideration. But again, once you get to the university, they're not going to keep that weighted GPA for the college courses on their university transcript. Most of the times, they're not even going to put courses from other colleges or universities on their transcript. They're just going to have a notation, X number of units in which you've transferred in, or if there's certain classes they're accepting as specific classes for them. But beyond that, you're not going to have like a weighted GPA there. So hopefully that answers that question for you. Then with GPA, I know you're answering some of those other ones. Was there anything else that kind of came up?
No, there was just questions around where to get information, but I think in general, as you had alluded to earlier, your high school counselor is a good start. And some people expressed the high school counselor wasn't as familiar. So my next recommendation would be your assistant principal at your school, because they would also know that information. And then in general, just visit, I pasted the link in some of the questions, our IVC dual enrollment website. It would, again, review what the 2 programs are that we just went over and what the process is like for taking classes. It would usually involve a college application. It would involve a consent form that your parents and the high school would authorize. And then once you kind of clear these steps, you'll be granted access to the classes. If you want to find classes, you can find it in our schedule of classes. But if you want to find classes specific to your school or your district, again, your local school or district would have that information on site. We work very closely with them.
And then I know that we gave our contact info at the end, but then if you want, go ahead and put your information in there. I'm going to put my information in here as far as my email. And one thing you will notice that in the chat, I just put in there a website, and that's from the UC system on how they weight GPAs, especially as it relates to college courses, honors courses, and APs. Also, in addition to all those great resources that Vin just gave as far as who you can go talk to, you want to go ahead and reach out to myself, and we have another counselor, Vanessa Ortega, that was also available. And Vanessa Ortega is a great resource because she's actually a high school counselor. She's a full-time high school counselor that we leverage and get to work with us too, to be able to help with IVC dual enrollment. And I love working with her because she brings in that perspective of the high school counselor and understanding that piece a bit more. And then you have myself, who kind of seen it on the college side a bit more on how those classes work. So yeah, feel free to reach out to us. We normally can answer a lot of those questions. To talk about it in general sense, it's hard, but obviously as we kind of come in and we have conversations, if you classes that you're saying, hey, do I get kind of that GPA boost or not? We can have conversations about that and figure out what that is. All right, got a couple more questions that came in here. Oh, go for it, Ben.
So just to clarify, in terms of who to contact, so your high school counselor, look for a counselor that has a college and career specialist in their title. So counselors or people that have those titles, they should be able to assist you.
Okay, so the next question here, does it impact my high school GPA if I get a B in IVC? So that's a really good question. And the answer to that is it depends. So if you actually are taking a CCAP course, which is going to be put on your high school transcript, then yes, the grade you get at IVC is going to impact your high school GPA. If you're taking a general dual enrollment course, so again, a course that's not kind of a partnership course or affiliated course with either Tustin Unified or Irvine Unified, then that is potentially not going to be put on your high school transcript unless you request it. So let's use the example that you gave here of getting a B in the college course. So that B is only going to live on the college transcript, not living at all or being placed on the high school transcript. So again, general dual enrollment, the enrollment we do outside of kind of the partnership classes, that's going to be on a college transcript. You would have to request that to be put on your high school transcript. And then the CCAP courses, and CCAP being those courses in which we do in partnership with the high schools, those ones would normally automatically be put on the high school transcript. There is nuances on that for Irvine Unified School District. It sounds like we have a decent number of people that are here from Irvine Unified, so I want to kind of make sure you know that. But for Tustin Unified, they do all get kind of put on. And then how many units can take during the summer? Okay, so that's a good question too. So we do have limitations for dual enrollment for any term. And at IVC, we have 3 terms. We have what we would kind of call the more traditional terms of fall and spring. Then we have summer. Fall semester is going to run, and this is very similar as it is in high school, but I always like to kind of explain this piece so we're all kind of understanding it the same way. Fall is going to run usually end of August until the middle of December. We're getting close to about the last 4 weeks of our fall semester right now. Spring is going to start mid-January and end towards the very end of May. Summer is going to start, it's got a couple of different start times, but end of May, middle of June, and go all the way through the middle of August, depending on the classes you're taking. So again, 3 terms, fall, spring, and summer. Any term, the maximum number of units a dual enrollment student can do is 11. And that's for general dual enrollment courses. For CCAP courses, that limit actually goes up to 15 units if it's only CCAP courses. So if it's a mixed bag, let's say I'm an Irvine Unified student and I'm taking a class with them for 2 classes, let's say, and that's 6 units. And then I go take another 3-unit class with general dual enrollment online with IVC. I'm now at 9 units. I would not be able to add another 3-unit class because that would put me at 12. Again, because the limit of just general dual enrollment or combo is going to be 11. If we're just doing CCAP, then that cap is going to be 15. As of right now, we haven't had or are in a situation where a student could even take 15 CCAP courses. I guess in theory, they probably could figure it out, but we don't have enough courses in any one of that would probably make that possible at this time. But it's important to know that that is an option too. Okay. I feel like I answered the CCAP versus dual enrollment question already. Vin, do you feel like I might have missed something there?
No, I think you covered it. You know, we covered it, but I think the person might have come in late.
Yeah.
But I could try to answer in a nutshell. So first of all, just in general, dual enrollment, you could visit our website if you want to find out more detail. It'll describe in more detail. But in a nutshell, college courses, the CCAP program are college courses offered at the local high school, typically in the bell schedule. These classes is generally just limited. We only offer a few of these courses per high school. General dual enrollment are high school students taking college courses at the college, so which is open to everybody. So anybody could try to take any class. The only drawback with general dual enrollment is that you might not have enough seniority in order to take some of the classes, because a lot of folks that are, preparing to graduate, they might be able to register ahead of time, so some of the class might be full. So the benefit of CCAP is that it's offered at the high school and it's closed out to everybody else, and it's only available to students at the high school and possibly within the district.
Thank you for that, Vin. And I'm actually going to bring us back full circle to how you kind of introduced yourself, talking about how you did the A through G requirements. So I just put into the chat the web link in which I am actually going to share the screen on right now. And I like to share this when I'm working with a lot of students, because this helps kind of understand just that piece that Vin was talking about in the beginning of how a college course can meet some of the requirements for A through G. Because really, you're going to be in one of two situations. You're going to be similar to what we were talking about in the beginning, to where you're trying to make up or get additional courses for some of these A through G areas, or you're already going to be looking good as it relates to A to G. And what you're going to be looking to try to do is just get units that specifically are going to work for you towards your degree or your associate's degree, ultimately for college. So I'd like to show this because I know that a lot of times it gets confusing on how classes count, where they count, like that, if you're talking A through G requirements. So I like this webpage because this webpage will obviously talk about, when you go in, that will be like that. It will talk about the high school courses, how many courses you need, everything like that. But in each one, you have this exams and coursework that if you go ahead and click on the plus, it'll give you more information about testing piece, and for our purposes tonight, what you can do as far as college courses that count in these areas. So this is a great website to kind of get you started in understanding how and what courses will count in each and all of these different areas here. So you have that link again in the chat there. Make sure that you look at that. But that's something you can look at, and then from there, speak with myself or another counselor to kind of look at your specific situation to see if there's anything else you need to know. All right. Will any additional courses be added to CCAP offerings next spring or fall beyond what's available? My child is currently a student in TUSD Connect. So the spring courses, and then I'll let you kind of finish this answer, but for the spring courses, we're pretty much where we are at this point because we're already beginning to register for those classes. Now for the fall, that is actually still under discussion, but I'm going to let Vin kind of talk about the nuances there of like how we decide and even come to a decision on certain courses. And then if you want, Vin, I could talk about how to, get that they may not see there as CCAP options.
Sure. But just to answer directly, TUSD Connect, there's a chance that there is one class that's going to be added for the spring, and that is going to be calculus. It's Math 3A, which is IVC's calculus course. I believe it's a 5-unit course. We're in discussion or in planning for an online asynchronous option with lectures, do your own lecture videos, and then the instructor would do live interactive sessions with the students, kind of like a flipped classroom type, but it's not solidified yet, but that's in the planning because we still need to get certain approvals and such, so that potentially could be offered. No promises, but we're working towards that. I believe in the fall there is a pre-calc that's offered, so this would be a continuation of that, if so.
And then, of course, outside of that, again, if there's courses that aren't offered through CCAP, whether it's TUSD Connect or another school, then general dual enrollment is the way to go to meet some of those requirements there. All right. Do you have subject-wise course progression, higher level math? So we have calculus, we have single variable 1 and 2, we have multivariable calculus, we have differential equations, and we have linear algebra. Those are some of the most advanced math courses we have at IVC. I would say at best, and this kind of goes to the next question that's being asked there. At best, usually Calc BC is going to count for maybe a year of calculus. So you're talking about completing kind of the single variable. Maybe a school might accept that for multivariable, but that's usually where students would jump over to a college or university to go ahead and take more advanced math. And I've had that scenario. Normally, a student that takes math, the AP Calc AB, if they get a score of like a 3 or a 4, at that point, we're going to be looking at that student probably taking our next level of math as Math 3B. So Math 3 would be Calculus 2 at IVC. And let me actually correct that. It's a score of 4 or 5, sorry, on the Calculus AB would allow us to kind of see at IVC at least that that student has completed Calculus 1. And then they're able to go into Calculus 2. If a student takes Calculus BC and they score a 4 or a 5, we will see that student as completing the first and second course in calculus, the 2 single variable calculus courses, and then we will let the student go into multivariable calculus, which is Calculus 3. For most engineering programs, for sure, computer science programs, you're going to need through multivariable and maybe some more advanced classes there. For a lot of bios, chems, programs like that, you might be just required to do about a year of calculus. Again, it really kind of depends on the school, but that's usually what kind of the max there would be. All right, so we got a couple of more minutes here left. Any last questions we want to answer? Anyone have questions that we can answer? All right, so, oh, look at that. Right when I was about to say it looks like we're good. He wants to major in math. Sorry, you couldn't tell me what's the next advanced math course if you have after Calc BC. So with that question, the next course after Calculus BC, I'm going to assume the student's going to get a 4 or 5 on it. So if the student gets a 4 or 5, then the class that he would want to take next with IVC would be Math 4A. That would be Calculus 3. It also is called multivariable calculus. So that's looking at. Multivariable is what the class is, and it's Math 4A. Okay, perfect. All right, so again, thank you for coming tonight.